I'm joined by Nightstar here. You get an vision into what's happening on the main side of the broadcast, but here on the English broadcast, we keep it real as we're sponsored by CDBC Bank. Let's not forget as well to thank Riot Games, Carry Live, and Garena for the PCS League operation and all the production you see here. Now, Nightstar, as I finally got you back here for the summer split, I know we've been going through week after week. We're already into week 3 of the PCS, and I kind of feel like the league has this different spin on it. Coming in as a bit of an outsider when last split it was like, top 3, all right. Feels like PSG J-Team or maybe CDBC Flying Oyster will win. This time around, maybe things feeling a bit close for comfort as we round out towards the middle.
Yeah, definitely a lot more parity in the league. Just top through bottom. You could say even the bottom teams like Sem9 have been competitive in a couple games. Yes, they're still winless, but possibly in the Toilet Bowl later on today, we might see them get their first win.
I love everyone else uses wooden spoon. You're like, nah, it's a toilet bowl. It doesn't get any more respect.
Exactly. I mean, they are 0-25, so you gotta say how it is, right? But first game of the day should be really not necessarily surprising results. If PSG do win this, I think everyone's going to have them heavily favored, but it'll be interesting to see how Impunity have changed things coming in from yesterday, because it was somewhat disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there was close calls yesterday. I feel like that last series, I was watching with bated breath after LPL, and I was like, man, better Falcon team might actually crush PSG here.
Oh my god.
It was a long one there, Nightstar. I know you're experiencing it with me, but more importantly, I feel like teams like Beyond Gaming, after getting taken out the other day, after taking that loss that no one really expected against Impunity, even you were saying before, Sem9 and DCG was a bit closer than people expected.
Yeah, it was a wild set of games yesterday. PSG almost dropped, as you mentioned. DCG almost dropped to Sem9. I think they took a bit of a disrespectful draft, right? Because they took Belveth, and Belveth, while can be a strong champion, I believe it's very, very niche cases. And that was just the case of, hey, we're playing the worst team in the league, or a team that has yet to win a game. Let's just lock in Belveth just to have fun. And man, Sem9 gave them a run for their money.
Yeah, they did. On the note of Belveth as well, I'm sure we'll get to talk about that throughout the course of the day. You guys have picked it up once, but I feel like we are still going to see it from some of those niche junglers. Now, at the moment, we were just talking a little bit about how things are coming closer than they seem. PSG and J-Team still at the top of the standings, but the one thing I take note of is that Deep Cross Gaming have made a bit of a run. The 5-win streak quite relevant here for a team that was in the upper echelon last split too.
Yeah, Deep Cross Gaming made some adaptations, and starting out 0-2, they are now on a 5-game win streak. Very, very good to see, as this was a team that we kind of heralded as one of those start fast, get ahead of the meta sort of squads.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Today's games, I think it's up and down, a lot of intriguing storylines. So, yeah, I'm quite excited for today.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're right. It looks close, right? Even Sem9 Doish team, one of those teams is going to come out with a series win. And we kind of hope that Sem9 can break that 0-25 curse they've already started the year with, but hopefully won't finish with. Later on as well, things continue heating up. CDBC Flying Oyster versus J-Team is at top of the standings matchup, with J-Team currently tying with PSG Talent for that first spot. So CDBC needing a bit of a win after yesterday didn't go too well with Beyond Gaming, DCG and Beyond there too. But we were talking at the very start of the show here, Nightstar, about what today is going to be, and it kicks off with PSG versus Impunity. And I feel like for these two rosters, we know a lot about PSG, right? We know that PSG, this team that's just come off the back of representing the region, now with a new jungle, a new mid who I actually casted over in FPX and didn't go well over there, but is doing so well on this new roster.
Yeah, Glory has just been a massive team fight revelation for the side of PSG Talent. And yes, when they still had Bay on the roster, the team fights were still relatively good, but it's just been absolutely game-changing with Gory in his place now. And the only disappointing thing about PSG talent has sort of been really everything else besides the team fight. Their drafts haven't quite fully adapted over to the current meta, and when you look at some of their in-game macro, it hasn't
Yep.
exactly been the cleanest.
Well, on the other side, Impunity Esports, I feel like a similar narrative overarches them as well. Today we get a reiteration of the roster. Annex is back in, and we get Alex, Apex, and Annex. The X's times 3, with, of course, Jackpot still here with ICE's departure. Impunity, a 10-man roster here, Nightstar. Like, you never know day in, day out what version you're going to get.
Yeah, this is a really interesting roster to follow given how many pieces they have. However, I think ultimately this will most likely be the final iteration of the roster if they do move into something like playoffs, but certainly we'll probably see a couple more roster shifts before they actually settle in. But Annex, of course, legendary player in the scene, and every time he comes into a roster, I feel like the main win condition should be get him his Jinx or another big hyper carry and allow him to do his work.
Because there is a lot of experience here as well. As we look at him against Unified, Unified is kind of the new, Annex kind of the old, right? We remember his days back on AHQ. We remember his days back on the world stage too. For Unified in the past couple of years, he has been a top 2 AD carry within the PCS. Everyone around the world now learning his name. And seeing these guys go head to head, that's what sells the matchup here for me. As Nightstar, it is the 3rd game for Annex, but we know that Unified ain't going nowhere and continues to be on our mind.
Yeah, and the big thing is the fact that Unified has been able to get his hands onto the Zeri, has been very, very successful, has also played a number of Senna games. PSG Talent, one of the teams that have utilized the Senna Tahm Kench to great effect. And definitely a bot lane that should be explored a little bit more so. And for Annex, again, it's just been all about the Jinx. So probably look to see some Jinx attention in the draft one way or another.
And I've noticed in 12-12, you know, we've seen that Aphelios rise back up as well with the Zeri constantly banned on the red side.
Yes.
So you raise up the Jinx is a good point here for Annex. Aphelios being a trade away feels like we're just going back to spring, as already PSG have started this off with a direct ban towards their new top laner in the Aurelia. Apex is Corki. We ain't even looking at some of the priorities for this patch. Instead, it's targeted all the way.
Yeah, and an interesting trend we've also seen yesterday was we had 2 B1 Azir picks after a multitude of mid lane bans. So we'll see if that trend holds up, because we know Gory, that is probably one of his most premier champions so far this split. So if he gets that in his hands, definitely watch out in some of these team fights. And Impunity, we'll see what they go with for this last ban. A lot of champions still left available, the Lucian, the Kalista, and of course the Azir, all champions that I think deserves attention.
But quick touch up here, the Jinx you mentioned, going to be banned against Impunity, so double AD carry have rotated out the center you talked about as well. That's 4 ADs in total now. And PSG, things like the Wukong are still available here. Nightstar, I don't know how your priority's been going, but things like the Wukong still first pick or ban over in the LPL. And I wonder if PSG want to set up jungle for it, but instead they're like, nah, we're not going to give Annex one of these top tier AD carries at the moment.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you see the ban of the Jinx from PSG, and then Impunity, they go ahead and ban away the Kalista, which is one of those champions that can have some success against Aphelios, but after you take away those champions, it just feels like Aphelios is just going to run away with it. And Impunity, they get their hands onto the Renata and the Wukong, which are very strong champions, but PSG get everything they wanted, which is Unified on probably his best champion in the Aphelios, and now Gory on his Azir. So all the stars seem to align for PSG with these first 2 picks.
And things like Viego available for Bury as well. He's most played so far alongside the Xin Zhao, so that would just be another easy takeaway that a lot of people across the world have taken into the Wukong matchup constantly.
Yeah, no. Currently looks like they have gone for the blind pick Gnar, which while we've seen plenty of blind pick Nars be punished, for the most part, it's, I believe, 73% win rate in the PCS. So a lot of success coming in with this Gnar pick. And for the Silent Impunity, this is very interesting. Going for the Ashe, of course, does relatively well into the Aphelios in the lane phase. However, does lack some of the damage output when it comes to straight up team fights.
I'm surprised not to see this Draven come through, but for Annex maybe going back a little bit here to the good old days. So we get the bottom lane set up from Impunity, and we get strong picks overall, but you're right, for PSG, they got their comfort, they got the top priority in the meta as well on top of that. And as we go through the bans coming through, we now have to look at what junglers will be left open, because Impunity is still targeting away Bury with the Trundle to kick things off.
Yeah, the second phase, banning out the Seraphine here, I think is a really smart move. The Seraphine adds just a ton of range to this composition, right? You already have the Ashe, you already have the Renata, a lot of range already in that bot lane. And then you throw the Seraphine on top, just the extra engage power with the ultimate. There's just so much pick potential. So that gets taken away. Impunity, they go ahead, ban 2 junglers, but the Viego still left available here. That's clearly going to be the next option, or the Xin. So I feel like while they've targeted some early junglers, early game junglers, PSG are going to be very comfortable with the other 2 that are left available.
Yeah, but again, things like the Viego not even touched in this day and age. Bury, like, there you go. We know what he's probably going to be ending up picking up here, but Impunity looking at a pick that, you know, you were hovering over the Gnar stats before. 75%, as you said, 14 and 5 is an insane stat. Gwen is on the other end.
Yeah.
She's 3 and 9 right now in the league, 25% win rate, not doing too well. And a lot of the PCS top laners have been risk playing with it.
Yeah, the Gwen stats have been really bizarre. Just given how strong the champion still is, it doesn't feel like PCS are finding that same success with that champion. And PSG, they go ahead, lock in the Tahm Kench. And against this, immobile backline in the Renata Ashe, you can pick a multitude of things for a jungler. You can go a little bit more aggressive with the Xin. The Volibear pick is a little interesting. Nerfed way too many times. The Poppy seems to be more of the new age Volibear, and that would make a lot more sense if they want to pick something with a little bit more early game presence. And with the Tahm Kench Aphelios, I think this is just going to be all about ganking bot lane over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, it seems simple here for PSG. The game plan is a 5v5 unit. What more do you expect from a team that, as you were saying at the start, team fighting is still there. PSG are one of the best team fighters in the league, if not the best, let's be real. And on the other side for Impunity, some of these old names coming through, they're bringing old picks as well. Apex took a Seraphine ban, but now all of a sudden he brings out the Ziggs. Nightstar, you're up to tell me what this comp wants to do, because there are a lot of different parts that we didn't really expect.
Yeah, this is a very surprising last pick coming in from Impunity. Apex, of course, relatively older player who's been in the scene. So the Ziggs has been one of those picks that have cycled through a number of times. And the Ziggs pick here also does very well into the Zir because you outrange that champion. And as a result, also does well into the Aphelios. For a certain period of time, we saw the Ziggs show up in that bot lane to counter the Aphelios because of that range matchup. So the Ziggs pick will be integral in being able to poke out that backline from the side of PSG. But the other problem is, if the Poppy ever gets on top of that Ziggs, the Ziggs has nowhere to run because the satchel charge isn't going to be very helpful against the steadfast presence.
Yeah, very, very true. Lock him in place. Importantly enough as well, I love the pick coming through from Impunity. The fact that Ashe Ziggs together, using some of the range you just talked about, but also the pick potential to come through. Now for PSG, we know that when you see Poppy, Tahm, with an Aphelios and a Zir, with a Gnar playing in the mid side, it's so nice to see like this front to back coming through. PSG, as they head onto the Rift, Nightstar, I was looking at an interview with Tarzan, LNG's jungler, the other day, and he thinks at the moment that this Poppy is one of the strongest jungle picks coming out in the current meta. Great early game presence, a lot of angles to play through for the ganks. So I'm kind of interested to watch Bury and what he can get done in this early game, because we did say that PSG's early game wasn't what we were really focusing on. It wasn't their biggest strength right now, as
Yeah.
opposed to their team fights that are carrying them through.
Yeah, and yesterday we saw a little bit more out of him when it came to trying to help out these lanes, attack the lanes. He had the Xin Zhao pick and performed relatively well on it. It was just some of the mid-game calls and especially trying to deal with the 1-4 pressure coming out from Taco's Jacks that really threw the game into a lot of confusion for the side of PSG. However, this time around, it's going to be this Poppy holding a lot of power, because on the flip side, Ziggs not necessarily great at shoving the lane very early on into an Azir, who's going to have cheaper mana costs at shoving out, just throwing down Sand Soldiers and shoving out that way. So we'll see if this early priority is going to transition into a lot for the side of PSG.
Well, Bury, he starts on the bottom side. Again, tracking the jungler will help us understand that mid matchup a little bit more as well. At least for Alex, he has somewhat of a setup there, but you talked about it before. It is looking like it is going to be a bot game with Unified on his comfort pick, but even more importantly, Annex and Yusin. The range here is going to be a bit annoying to play with, and I'm wondering if they can dominate this laning phase, because Unified and Kaiwing have been under speculation recently for their 2v2 not being as strong as maybe Spring.
And for the side of Impunity, you can see that they do have some intention on trying to dial in onto this bot half of the map, because they do have Alex starting top side, so he should be finishing towards that bot half. But Bury perhaps looking for an early play in this bot side. It would be very similar to, you know, a Volibear looking for a level 3 play, which is really where his sweet spot is. And Poppy, definitely the new age version of the Volibear pick, as Volibear just nerfed way too many times. And here we go, level 3. Do they actually find the angle though?
I mean, that innovative path coming through. The knock-up is going to make it a yes. Annex already flashing away, and Yusin, will he burn his summoner? No, he knows he's a dead man. And Bury with first blood, piloting the Poppy just as we planned.
And you can see Impunity actually didn't expect that, because when he was on the Krugs, Alex was actually pinging towards the Raptor, so they thought he started up or started pathing up top side, but Bury just goes straight to Krugs and comes down into the bot lane, and I mean, Yusin's just way too far up, and it's just free food.
Nice setup. I mean, Tahm Kench is something we're seeing more and more in the meta too. Even without the center. Beautiful little knock up there from Kaiwing, and the bottom lane, away it goes. I want to also point out that with Bury not burning a flash, but with Annex having his down, the potential for a repeat is there. Nightstar, even with Scuttle taken on the bottom side. We'll have to see what Bury does next, because this Poppy is already on the board with the first blood in hand, and has a full topside jungle to clear, with lanes in a pretty decent state to gank. Look at mid, look at bot, and look at the setup right now from the laners.
Yeah, really nice setup. Impunity do have a lot of ward coverage down in this bottom half. Apex doing pretty well in lane, and of course Gory hasn't really shined during the lane phase. Of course, he's had issues with that as well in LPL, right?
Oh, he sucked in FPX. I'll tell you what, that laning phase, the first 15 minutes, I am not afraid to say that Gory was one of our worst laners, Nightstar. And then he got to team fighting. It's like, dude, why can't you play like that all the time?
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, okay.
Oh, okay. He's out of mana. He's out of mana.
Nah, yeah. And honestly, it's still held somewhat true here. He hasn't exactly shined in the lane phase, even in the PCS, but the difference is we don't have Rookie or Knight or any of those elite players that just, once they take an arm, they also take a leg, and then it's your other leg, and then it's your other arm, and then all of a sudden you just can't do much. However, we see that he isn't really one of those players that does the same to other players who shouldn't be in that same category as him.
I mean, I know exactly what you're saying, right? It's the PCS mid laners aren't as relentless. Maybe people like, you know, maybe I'm thinking like the Mission and the rest. I know I'm talking about top lane as well, but
Yeah.
I feel like there are very specific laners in this league who kind of have that LPL vibe to them as well. As Bury's invading now. We just saw him on a ward on the bottom side. He cleared it out. He's going to continue to invade, which means this will be a bit of a smite battle. But as Gromp resets and goes back, Bury is going to back all the way back as well. Just continuing putting pressure on the bottom side of the map. And because of it, you can see Impunity are slowly falling behind with the start of a 5 CS discrepancy.
Slowly but surely. But for the side of Impunity, the highlight really isn't going to be the lane phase of this composition, although in that bot lane, of course, with the double range, you want to get a little bit more out of the lane phase, but certainly once you hit level 6, that's where this composition definitely comes online. You have so much wombo potential, you have the Wukong ultimate to channel into the Ziggs ult, or start a pick off with that Ashe ult that might lead to something as well. So a lot of mid-game pressure coming in from Impunity. And for PSG, it's going to be very reliant on Bury being able to find good disengages. Of course, this Poppy pick just really, really powerful because of the changes to the ultimate. If he holds on to the ult and lets it expire in the channel, it allows him to reset, and the cooldown doesn't get reset that hard anymore.
Yeah, it's really nice. Like those quality of life changes make it feel like you're not punished for the attempted play and, you know, fizzling out and disengaging. And further to your point, that ulti will be up and available soon as Bury goes for yet another invade. He's a bit of a nuisance right now in Alex's jungle as he spots him out. He's just going to walk on through, sees him in his Krugs, and backs once again. And I wanted to come back to a little bit more about the comp you're talking about for Impunity. It feels like a lot of big ult buttons to be used, a lot of burst, a lot of all-in with the semi-globals as well, mind you. Mega Inferno Bomb, Chanacrystal Arrow, Nightstar. There is a lot for Impunity to use tools, but as we talk about tools on the bottom side, one of them is going to be down with the Flash. Easily taken by Kaiwing, who gets an Abyssal Dive once again. I mean, Yusin, second time he's been caught out.
Yusin just playing really far forward. Wants to get a little bit more, but you can see that he's not quite on the same page as Anix, who's been very comfortable just saying, hey, I'm just going to throw out the W, I'll throw out the arrows, farm from range, I'm fine with this being somewhat uninteractive, and Yusin just kind of doesn't want to give up too much ground during this lane phase, and unfortunately has been punished because of it. Loses the flash, Bury then immediately transitions over to this dragon. That's a free take from them, and Gory even pathing towards the top half to really slow down Alex and perhaps deny him from really taking this Rift Herald, although he is we'll see if he continues to harass him.
Yeah, we'll see because it's on a ward. PSG have done a really good job in warding up this topside river, and as Bury's just taken the dragon, usually we see teams set up for the trade, set up for the cross map. Yusin's a little bit slow here. He's walking towards mid lane for now, but Kaiwing was here first. Gory has mid lane priority. The ward is still there from PSG, and Impunity have yet to pick up this Herald. They're just sitting right now for time, and it feels like right now PSG still have control of the map state as they finally walk on up after the top lane pushes out to get the objective they came for.
And for PSG, it wasn't really going to be a reasonable denial of this Rift Herald because of Gory being low on that mana.
Almost. I value the attempt, honestly. Alex goes and Bury comes in with a flash to steal. A pixel too short. So Alex gets away with a Rift Herald, which is going to be good for Impunity despite the early game lead that they're now down on by about 1,500.
Yeah, and this was a necessary take coming in from Impunity. They need some way to try and get some gold funneled into one of these carries. I'd like to see it thrown into that mid lane, but of course it's always a difficult task against an Azir with all the wave clear he can have. But if there is ever an opening, that mid tower just instantly dies, right? Because you throw down Rift Herald, and you also, of course, have the explosive or satchel charge coming in from the Ziggs that can execute a turret when it gets low, or maybe they even just move the Ziggs into one of these side lanes to try and take advantage of it.
Well, let's see, because you need 2 on the turret plating, as I think Gory was angling for the ulti there. The satchel charge brings him into turret, and Apex with a good trade back. 2 on the turret plating for Satchel Charge to take effect, so it is a significant amount more than the Herald, but at the very least, you're right. Apex has the opportunity to kind of break open one of these turrets. But
And
now, Bury's
Oh
on
my
again.
God.
Thanks for the steal.
Oh
Alex
my
a
God.
little bit slow on the smite, and he wanted to give it over to his mid laner, but Bury once again comes in to be a nuisance, and they just keep doing this. I mean, PSG's jungler right now is Diff and Alex. There's Gory on top of the blast cone, the ulti out, and that's what I know Gory for.
Just goes for the play. And but look, okay,
Bury.
he might be a little bit
Okay.
hard.
Maybe he doesn't care. Chilling Smite comes through, and enchant across the arrow from downtown. Annex might even hit a Nara on the top side, but of course, he's a little bit further back in the lane. So that one comes in, and all I can say is that PSG trying new things out. Annex has flash. He flashes late, almost dies to Unified. Yeah, that was just not good.
It's not the finest look coming in from Impunity. Yesterday we saw them really struggle down in that bot side. Of course, that was well planned out dives coming in from J Team this time around. It's really just, again, the oppression coming in from this mid jungle 2v2. PSG, they've really played well around mid priority. Bury constantly going in for invades, either finding more vision onto Alex or just trying to be just a giant nuisance. And that's also the power of the Poppy, right? Every time she walks into your jungle, because there's so many walls, there's no safe place to play around in your own jungle.
I mean, just setting up for his mid laner further to your mid jungle 2v2 point. Bury has been helping out Gory with the lane, and Gory right now 20 CS up. He's pushed away Apex, who doesn't have teleport to get here. So mid is going to be pushed up against the wall once again. Impunity have to walk into this river that is so well watered by PSG. You got to give them props for one of the best teams in the league, actually the best team in the league, as Arrow comes through and misses. You know, they're once again holding their reputation, and throughout all lanes here, it's a stomp over Impunity. They have so much individual experience of their own, like Alex, Apex, Annex. These three have been around LMS, LPL in the past, and they're people who should be doing better than they are right now in this game, but are getting classed by some of the newer faces within the league.
And Gory,
Okay, that's a nice combo. Into the wall, the artificial one, but still, it's a great little E here from Bury. As Gory sends him backwards, PSG with the second kill, and this is starting to look like a big stomp. But trying with the knockup again, Annex just stands over it. Was Calm Kench out when he was in his prime? I don't know. The flash tongue lash comes through as the heroic charge is close enough. Houston flashes off cooldown again. And Nightstar, this one just feels done so.
Definitely not a great look for Impunity right now. Even forced to throw down the Rift Herald as it's timing out, most likely. And they don't even get any plates off of that. So it's just, all in all, PSG come out with a massive victory. And for Impunity, there's just no coordination. They've kind of picked the scaling or mid-game sort of draft here, and as they're about to hit some of their power spikes, they don't look like they're ready to really try and fight. And that's an issue, because this team does need a little bit of coordination to utilize their full wombo potential.
That's the combo here from PSG's mid-jungle, though. This is what we've seen quite a lot in the LPL too. It's the Azir Poppy into the Emperor's Divide. And I just have to say, like, does Annex not see that? Is there a spectator bug? Because every single time Abyssal Dive has come through, Annex or Houston have just stood on top of it. Like it's, and you know, you were saying before, I'm sorry, this is only game one and I'm a little bit tilted already, but Impunity, like, these names mean so much to me. As Hanabi is about to go on a Mega Knight, Jackpot needs to back away. As Hanabi may have found the jackpot, and I mean that quite literally. What I was about to say is that, you know, these players shouldn't be getting hand stiff right now, but they are. It's not even coordination. It's individual skill as Gory goes a bit too deep and has to flash. Chan across the arrow, a nice try here. And getting away from the tilt for the time being, a 3k gold lead from PSG. This hand stiff throughout each and every lane has netted 2 bounties. Look at Hanabi stomping Jackpot, giving him a warm welcome to the PCS.
Yeah, Alex, he's just going to get choked out too.
That's flash. should be okay. And interrupt the Furry's ultimate before he can get anywhere nearby. So Alex gets out, but that means he's once again threatened from his own jungle and has to rely on his bottom lane to just help him get Gromp and potentially the blue.
And he's going to smite here, but it means that he doesn't have smite for this mini objective. And Furry just goes ahead, steals it away. Easy does it. 3 minutes until Dragon, so you're not worried about, oh, I smited blue, now I don't have it for Dragon. That's not going to be an issue, and Bury just continues, really just 1v2, knowing that, hey, Gory can join if I need him, but for the most part, it's about just continuing to deny Apex more and more CS. They even pulled Jackpot down from the top lane to maybe fish for a play, and it's just not there. So all in all, PSG just continue to really work the lane phase. As long as these towers remain up, PSG are just slowly choking the life out of Impunity.
But at least for Impunity, like making that move from Jackpot on the top side with the extended top lane, at least they're trying to do something, right? Like they're not just sitting on their back, being inactive. Right now, we do get that one-item power spike you're talking about. Annex is close by as well with the Immortal Shield Bow on this Ashe, but PSG still continue to take objectives around them. They're 2 dragons up. You also pulled it out before. We are close to the 3rd dragon. The 2nd Herald goes to them too. There's objective bounties for Impunity, and this kind of feels like I'm watching PSG from Spring versus, Impunity from Spring at this point. It might be a much better roster, but against PSG, it is looking so one-sided, and people at home might be like, oh, it's only a 5k gold lead, but at 17 minutes, Alex has not had one single setup of an engage. Bury has been running the jungle, even wasting time in brushes because he can, and he's not down on CS. And every single lane is up at least 20. 60 CS in the mid lane. There's 40 CS in the bottom lane. Almost a second item for Unified before Annex has his first. Like, here's Herald. There goes the turret. There's red buff gone. It's burning and it's not fine.
There is not much left for Impunity to collect, even on their own side of the map, right? They're losing their buffs. That's just how much threat has been applied by the side of PSG, and it's just Impunity. Where's the flip? When are you going to make a stand, right? At some point, you need to figure it out, because the Ashe isn't going to... Yes, the range is nice against an Aphelios, but you're not going to start out-damaging the Aphelios Azir anytime soon. Your only hope, once it gets to that later portions of the game, is just maybe Jackpot is able to get access to the backline. Maybe Apex just finds a 5-man Mega Inferno Bomb, but those are small saving graces. You need to find some way, shape, or form to flip just a small advantage back into your side.
But you were saying in draft, and this is another one of my concerns, is that for Impunity, you know, this Ziggs, like, look at all the tools that PSG have to get onto the backline. There's Hanabi, there's Bury, there's Gory, there's Unified, there's Kaiwing, and I say Unified because he has a Gale Force. He is the least proactive member to gap close that Ziggs, but it'll still happen. So for PSG, the tools are there, and, you know, we're going to continue singing their praises until we see one of these picks come out. Now, Annex has the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, but refuses to fire it out as PSG are soloing the 3rd dragon, thanks to their vision control, thanks to everyone from Impunity showing on mid with the top lane at top. And Gory's like, okay, if you're all mid, while we're doing dragon, I'm also going to push this, and the macro could not be cleaner from our defending champions, from our spring champions, I should say.
Yeah, and look at the ward coverage in this mid-side area. You have so many red wards just invested in making sure there is no flank angle onto their backline. So that's why Unified is able to play that far forward, knowing that there's no possible way Jackpot comes in with the teleport and comes in and tries to surprise them with the flank. And Kaiwing Unified playing very far forward. Of course, he had the Tom Kench. And the other issue is, even if you do land the arrow onto Unified, he has a cleanse. So Annex, he's trying to figure out what to do with this Ashe, with Ashe ultimate, but his only target really is just Gory.
Okay, well, speaking of Gory, this is a nice little setup for the pick, but the slide and glide out means that Gory's no longer a target. Alex didn't even burn the ulti there, and I've only seen that Wukong ult once so far here, Nightstar. Still
that was
feels
a runaway.
like, yeah, a bit of a runaway. I mean, look, you know, Gory might still get out, but I'm not sure the last time I saw, outside of maybe Gory in mid lane, when was the last time we saw a flash that was defensive from PSG in this game?
Yeah, it's all the flashes have been channeled forward, and even then, it's not like PSG have been forced into a situation where they needed a flash. Look, Bury once again gets another buff. I think for the side of Impunity, they've only gotten maybe 3 buffs this entire game. It's been a rough ride for Alex in this jungle, and a part of that again has just been sort of Apex losing a lot in this mid lane, and once that mid lane tower goes down so early, a lot of your jungle is just up for grabs for the other team. And for the side of PSG, they've really just said, thank you very much, we'll just continue to invade time and time again, make sure you don't get any EXP here.
Also makes it easier as Jennifer Farah comes through. Okay, setting up the pick, and now Alex with the Cyclone. Well, the damage will come through if they get another knockout. Now they don't, and CP comes through. Unified is frontlining with Kaiwing joining in. The Needleworkers Jackpot stands his ground, but that Devour is free low at this point. Bye-bye, Mr. Jackpot. Hanabi with the ult into the wall. It's only a one-man, but it's clean, as Houston doesn't even get to burn the flash. Impunity get destroyed again. 5-0. Unified surviving the Mega Inferno bomb. And with a 8k gold lead, this is still a perfect game from our spring champs.
PSG just really milking the map right now. Find that pick. I mean, they just kind of punish the side of Impunity, searching for a pick on the Poppy, which is just too tanky at this stage in the game because they just don't have any damage. It's not necessarily the Poppy is that tanky, with, you know, to a certain degree she is, but they just can't get in range to actually throw down any damage onto that champion. And even Hanabi, he just goes forward, knowing that, again, there's no risk. If he overextends himself, what are they going to do? Burst him? That's not happening. So he just goes forward and kills the support for free.
Well, we got a minute 30 until PSG looks towards Dragon Soul, though, and as I said before, a perfect game still stands. Impunity struggling in this game, but look, let's be real with Ziggs, with Gwen. We can see how the hope is brewed. But at this point, I'm not willing to talk about it. I'm not willing to ask you, Nightstar, as to how Impunity comes back into the game, because we have seen nothing successful so far, and we have constantly seen PSG set up opportunities. Houston still has the flash available. Unified tries to poke him down, but Kaiwing not setting up for the engage. Instead, they sit in the mid wave. They continue to slaughter these minions to gain more priority and set themselves up for the Dragon Soul so early on at the 24-minute mark.
And it's not a bad soul either, right? They're going to get Hextech Soul, and that is, man, that is so impressive. You get tagged by one of those sand soldiers, you're just slow to oblivion. And then it's just so much sticking power. With a Gnar, with a Poppy, that's probably one of the worst things. And all of a sudden, Unified, one of his greatest weaknesses on this Aphelios is, of course, getting kited out. That's not going to be an issue either. So this is pretty much the game on the line for the side of Impunity. If they drop this, that's problematic. That's why you see them try and make a concerted effort into this river area, but now they're stuck.
Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. Hanabi's in! That's easily done. We've got a good hostile takeover, but when I say good at this point, it doesn't matter. Still a perfect game, as Hanabi was closest to dying, but you saw that flank coming through, he used the flash aggressively, and all of a sudden, Impunity are right back where they started.
Yeah, Impunity, they understood what they needed to do. Unfortunately, they didn't understand how to do it. And also just being so far behind, you're just giving up way too much ground. You needed to find a way to flip the game much, much earlier. But unfortunately for the side of Impunity, they just didn't pull the trigger.
Well, what's new? This game has been so lopsided. I mean, it's a funny way to start, considering you and I had a discussion in our little rehearsal before, and Nightstar, we were like, today looks like a really competitive day in the PCS. Like, we have close matches, this could have been one of them with what we saw yesterday from PSG versus Meta Falcon team. But as they come back and, you know, have essentially had back-to-back games with finishing with MFT yesterday, starting with Impunity today, I mean, this is a completely different PSG. The Poppy pick has given them so much agency. I feel like Bury needs to be commended for the early game and Gory through the laning phase too. And throughout even the rest of the lanes here, Alex hasn't been able to do a thing and is 0-0-0 for a reason. He hasn't been in a lane all game and you know, I think Alex deserves a bit of criticism at the same time.
Yeah, certainly. He hasn't been able to find an angle to try and just go for a flip. At a certain point, you have to make a stand.
Is it a flip? Is it really a flip?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's not a flip anymore, but Bury, goodbye, jungler.
Yeah, he flashes in. Mega Inferno Bomb was a good
close.
attempt, but Smite still exists. And I love the ult coming through from Bury. Baron down. An 11k gold lead brewing. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're a PSG fan right now, you like what you see because you're seeing strength throughout all parts of the game. I think Nightstar, this is their strongest game of the split so far.
Absolutely. Bury, he just...
Oh, no. Oh,
is
God.
unrelenting. Man. Oh, no way!
Oh, God. All right. Go next. I can't do it anymore.
Oh, my God. He's not even allowing them to have, like, one of those simple cheese sandwiches. He's just saying, no. I'm taking the cheese out of your sandwich, too.
It's just bread. What's the point?
Yeah. I'm taking the bread, too. I'm leaving you with the crust.
Well, look, let's be real. At this point, I don't even think Impunity have been given the crust. I think the toast is there as Unified just walks up from the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. And Impunity just have to go, what can we put in at this point? Jackpot running forward and Unified still with everything up and available. The poke is too much. Apex is hit for half HP with Annex not even being the main target. That was the secondary passive from Infernum as Alex once again can't get out and PSG in 27-minute fashion are looking to set this game in order. This has just been beautiful from start to finish and Nightstar, even if it's only double inhibitor now, I mean Jackpot going forward with the Ghost, looking for something. The needlework's in, Kaiwing's interrupted, PSG can turn this around. Jackpot knows that as Bailout comes through, as Unified's ult misses, but Harnabees doesn't. That's a bit of a Wombo setup as Hostile Takeover says hello to the minions, and Unified continues pressing. Still undefeated in this game. 9-0 as Harnabees starts auto-attacking, running into the fountain, the first kill denied. Unified jumping forward, 10-0, Bury ulting into the Nexus. PSG are gonna get a perfect game. Gory almost ruining that for me as he kites away, goes golden, but Impunity have been perfect game by PSG talent.
J-Team almost did it against Impunity yesterday, but PSG will be the ones to actually do it. Perfect game coming in from them, and it was really just perfect start to finish. They didn't have the perfect game, of course, but...
What do you mean they didn't have the perfect? That wasn't
they gave up a Herald.
Oh, who cares? That's perfect enough for me. They got no kills. They didn't get a turret. They literally didn't get to speak.
They didn't get any of their jungle camps, man. Oh my god, that was so filthy.
It was so filthy. And further to your point, yeah, I know technically we're not talking perfect game, but let's be real. It was perfect in every way but that one little Rift Herald. PSG Talon, a great performance. And, you know, you and I were talking a little bit in draft about what was given over to PSG at the very start, the Aphelios first pick. The Azir was a big core component of what you talked about. And yeah, once again for Gory, has shown why this Azir has been taken away from him, or at least rather should have been, by Impunity.
Absolutely. Gory on this Azir, just completely different beast.
Yeah.
He's just able to dominate lane phase. Yes, the Ziggs isn't necessarily supposed to be able to smash him in lane, but certainly not at a deficit like that, right? He's just, I believe he finished with the Flame Horizon in that mid lane. And for the side of Impunity, it was just too much predicated on being able to play around the Ash Arrow, but
Yeah.
the Ash Arrow just got hard countered by the fact that, well, Cleanse exists and also Tahm Kench exists, and they didn't ban out Tahm Kench because they banned out 2 junglers in the second phase that didn't even address probably the 2 junglers that are probably better than the 2 that they banned.
Yeah, we're not even talking about Viego. We're not even talking about Xin Zhao, Bury's most played so far. Both of which, by the way, probably would have done a similar job. But, I mean, props to him on this Poppy. This last pick came in clutch. And I feel like for Bury, it has been a case of development each time. Because I remember talking to Clement about it. Nightstar at the start of the split, he's very quiet. And he just did his job.
Yeah.
The rest of PSG, you know, they were the ones we were talking about. Each and every game, we've seen more of Bury. He has come up more in conversation. He has done a lot more, I will say, as well. This time around on the Poppy, that aggression came through, and it feels like this guy's coming out of his shell a bit and resonating nicely with what PSG could become as we watch the development for the rest of the split.
Yeah, we just didn't see this type of aggression from the jungle position last split. Juhan was very, very measured, and if the play wasn't like 95-5, he just wasn't going to take it. And Bury, you love to see this sort of aggression, especially with Gory playing very, very well this time around in that mid lane, not giving an inch in the lane phase. It was just really fundamentally strong showing coming in from PSG today.
From every single member, right? It wasn't as a team, it was individually. Then they came together
Tahm
because
Kench,
they all had a lead.
Point and click Tahm Kench.
I mean, let's be real though. Impunity's bottom lane. Maybe we need to look at a spectator bug or something, or maybe they can't see the abyssal dive because they just stood on top of it. Like with flash available a couple of times, late flash from Annex, meaning he has to leave lane again. It's I don't know what to say about Impunity, but this is kind of some of the issues I felt like we saw with some of these players, Nightstar, because people like Apex, Annex in the past, like, you know, being on a roster together, and it's all kind of come crashing down despite their experience.
Yeah, and you could possibly say it's because they've gotten 2 Koreans into the roster, so they're almost taking on the PSG experiment, right? Pulling in 2 Koreans, trying to integrate in the roster, and maybe they're having a ton of communication issues. But if that's the case, you still had the opportunity to retain ICU and play one of your Chinese-speaking players, but that's not the case. They really want to play their 2 Koreans, and as we can see in the damage charts, the only champion that was able to try and do something was, of course, the Ziggs, and we knew he'd be able to contribute, but unfortunately, it's just not enough when the only skill he really has is that Mega Inferno Bomb to threaten PSG.
Yeah, I mean, like, he got stuck in the mid lane, never got to move, never got to get that pushing power under wraps. As Bury getting MVP. This ain't like the previous times on the Xin Zhao where it's like, yeah, he played well with the rest of PSG. Bury carried this game.
Yeah.
The scoreline might not suggest it as much, but that jungle harass meant that Alex couldn't really gank a lane. I mean, Alex couldn't even come out of his own jungle.
He couldn't even take anything in his own jungle. He had to just give up everything, every single little bit. It's just not allowed to him. And as a result, he couldn't even influence any of the lanes, right? His lanes couldn't support him. And it was just all around just a massive jungle difference in that particular game, which, of course, helped out by the lanes.
Well, I think for PSG, they'll still be happy, though. The perfect game coming through just about, apart from the Herald. This is a team right now that I feel like, you know, we're already behind, right? Even despite their Meta Falcon team, close win yesterday. Against J-Team, the performance great. Even at the start of the split, CDBC Flying Oyster, PSG looked clean. They're setting themselves up for the world split, and right now I'm all about it here. So PSG with a win to open us up tonight. However, we're going to see who can find their first series win after the break. Jewish team or Sem9? We find out right after this.